talked about the guys throwing it down the middle regularly. They've been doing it a long time. One of the more interesting things I've seen, and now Taka Tsunoda is here from Sony, we call him now, and he's head of the headphone development at Sony. I wanted to talk to you now because you guys actually made some balanced armature in-ears, a couple of models of which I actually quite like, especially the XBA3, relatively affordable. What's the XBA3? 300 bucks?
Yeah.
Or thereabouts?
Yeah.
And I think it's a wonderful piece. I put it in our buying guide because I recommend it. But you guys took an interesting route. I mean, you haven't been doing balanced armatures a long time. You just started. But unlike everybody else that I've seen, you actually developed balanced armature drivers on your own rather than sourcing them from somewhere else. Why would you have done that, and how did you do it? Because you did it well.
Okay, so let me talk about the our balanced armature. Why did we decided to start producing the balanced armature driver unit? And so in the past, we believed that the dynamic driver unit is more versatile for everybody because but the dynamic driver unit will have a slightly softer diaphragm, and which will offer more air to your ear canal. And therefore, the dynamic driver unit is more ideal solution for that. But after we have seen this real market, so these guys, like the Ultimate Ears and some other, Shure, and some companies, those manufacturers started to be very good balanced armature driving into its head earbuds. And yes, so we have seen the opportunity for that. This is not an opportunity. Doesn't mean the market opportunity, but the quality opportunity. And so those are kind of this balanced armature driving. It showed a very good isolation from environmental sound to issue you cannot. And therefore, we thought, so this is good for the mobile use. So then we decided to go to the balanced armature driving world. But then one thing that we didn't launch this product is until the very recent years is so we wanted to control everything from the scratch to the final product. Then so one issue is the driving it. So if we don't produce this driving it by ourselves, it doesn't mean we cannot get the ideal scientific characteristics without that. Therefore, we decided to start manufacturing the balanced armature driving.
Well, yeah. So that goes against. I mean, you actually are developing that. That certainly is not an inexpensive way to do R&D. To develop your own balanced armature. Nobody else is really developing their own balanced armature drivers. So that's pretty cool. You've obviously invested a lot in it. Will we see more products, balanced armature products, from Sony?
Yes. So one of the big advantages over this manufacturer like us is since Sony is a big company, and so we have made a very big investment to have to produce this balanced armature driving it. Then so one of these key is very automated. This production line for the balanced armature driving it. That's the key for the affordable balanced armature driving it. But so we didn't have any compromisation on the designing this balanced armature driving it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's I wanted to being that this is a hi-fi show and there's a lot of extreme hi-fi here. I wanted to transition into some of the higher end stuff. And what a lot of people don't know in the audio world is that some of the best sounding headphones in the world, regardless of form factor, in my opinion anyway, are some of the top-notch custom in-ear monitors that are available. And that's where we have Jerry Harvey, Carl Cartwright from Westone, Mike Diaz from Ultimate Ears. Jerry Harvey, now at JH Audio, is really the guy who sort of invented the multi-driver custom in-ear monitor. And actually, there's a really interesting story behind it, and I was hoping Jerry could share that.
Actually, we're good. Actually, the guy next to my left here and I, we kind of worked together from, what, 94, 95 to about 2000. So we were kind of a real team. I would push Carl to build stuff, and I would be out in the field. I was doing Van Halen at the time, and we decided he answered the phone one day and I called and he decided he'd work with me. So I owe a lot of what happened to Carl. He's a great guy, and we were a really good team in the early years. So, you know, we developed a lot of good stuff together. I would push him, but, you know, I couldn't have done anything without him. We were a great team. So.
But where did the idea come from, you know, like initially with Alex? Yeah.
Well, in-ear monitors have been around probably for at least 5 years before that, because there's a company called Carwood Radio Stations. They actually were the first professional in-ear monitor hardware company. There's a gentleman named Marty Garcia that actually started in-ear monitors, but his idea was to take a diaphragm, put it in a mold, and that wasn't, you know, the in-ear monitor. So the hardware was very good. The earpiece was really horrible. So that's why, you know, back in '95 I started working on the earpiece so I wouldn't get fired from Van Halen. So I had to make it sound better, and that's when it all came about. Because I called Carl, you know, Carl said I can mold it and we'll work.
Kind of what happened there is, you know, the few people that were trying to do an in-the-ear monitor at the time had only dynamic drivers that they were using. And as you know, with any dynamic driver, you need to have space, you need to have venting. That all tunes it and makes it sound right. Well, back in the early 90s, I worked with Bill Chrysler for a Def Leppard tour and a Rush tour. Not that I was on the tour, but they were having problems with so much stage volume that, you know, their ears were in terrible shape because they were using dynamic drivers for their monitors. So we switched them into balanced armature driver earpieces, which essentially give us a solid earplug. So a solid, fully attenuating earpiece could be developed. Then Jerry and I got together and we said, well, okay, you know, volume and destroying these dynamic drivers and trying to get better output out of them was one of the problems that Jerry was facing. And so we worked together and kind of solved that problem, and along the way built a couple of new ideas.
A couple companies, and probably 90% of the companies that build in-ear monitors are building some of the stuff we worked on in '95, '98. But yeah, so that's kind of how it went. You know, I just looked up at the PA system, and I was like, I knew how to tune a PA system. I knew how to, how big systems worked, and I just thought I'd miniaturize it and put it in an earpiece. And I just thought it was common sense that there should be a low driver and a high driver, not just a broadband single balanced armature, because I believe that it's really almost impossible for one armature to do the complete bandwidth or one diaphragm to do the complete bandwidth. So you really have to start, using different size components to actually do the proper bandwidth and split them up. Two-way, three-way. Three-way works best, but two-way is also acceptable.
Otherwise, and I agree with Jerry. Otherwise, everything you do is just compromise. Okay. Even when we do multi-driver things, we have to compromise, but everything is compromised. The less components, that kind of thing. I'm sure you found out the same thing. That working with these drivers can be very rewarding and very difficult to try and get exactly what you want.
So getting back to your original question, Jude, again, once the stage was set with multi-drivers, it was the market that really helped craft the sound. That sound was interpreted through the companies involved. It was the market, it was the musicians always seeking another level of perfection, more clarity, more depth, more sonic integrity, that kept driving this market. And it wasn't, the market, how long did it get to evolve just with music? 5-6 years, really.
98.
Yeah.
98 was a solid market, and we realized
Yeah, so years and years of getting, perfection and sneaking up on the right sound signatures with all the best ears in the industry before consumers started to get hip in the early iterations as by the first founding members, if you will, who started to gravitate and what about using this pro version, these pro technologies for a consumer grade listening experience? And that was the next level of generation of the evolution of in-ears, of balanced armatures. And now we're in the third generation where you have companies that weren't involved in the music space coming in and capitalizing on what's being created from music to consumers, and a very broad spectrum of consumers.
Yeah, it's still, you know, but I mean, as far as a broad spectrum of consumers on the custom side, so few people that I run into even know what they are yet. They're familiar with the fact that their favorite musicians use them. How many in here actually ever had custom in-ear monitors made? So in this room, actually there's about a third of you at least. Yeah, so, but most of the people I run into never used them or even thought about it, but they're familiar with the fact that musicians use them, not realizing that the fact that the favorite artists are using some of the best sounding headphones and have been professionally for years. I found, in general, custom in-ear monitors to have a substantial sonic advantage when they're done right versus any of the best universal bits I've got anyway. I mean, you might have tried, Tom might have tried some. Have you had any that are as good as the top notch?
I'd say the best generic one that for me is the Shure 535, but it doesn't touch what I hear from the high-end custom engineers.
I like the Dewey 900. I like the 535.
You know, I have a question. How much of this stuff came? You talked about all the theater and the sound reinforcement stuff, but what about from the hearing aid side and the automotive? And you know, because
Well, Etymotic wasn't really involved in the professional side because they had a single balanced armature, the R4. So Meade actually kind of launched into he was the first person to actually take a balanced armature and make a broadband earpiece.
As an interesting side note, it was originally developed for a piece of test equipment. And it just so happened that a guy in the lab was going, you know, bored one night, and he was pumping some tunes through the test microphone, and that's where the R4 came from.
Right.
So, you know, when you say clinical, this truly is. It's clinical. Yeah.
It's still, the R4 is actually still a good piece.
Oh, yeah.
But
No disrespect meant.
yeah, but it would have been nice to have Meade Killian, you know, here. But yeah, that's still a nice piece. But so what gives, assuming if you go along with me the way I feel, I think customs do sound better than any of the universal bits I've tried. What would give a custom the advantage? I'm just trying to understand why, you know, what are some of the things?
Real estate. You have more space to work. You can arrange the components properly. You can do things. You know, most of the generic earpieces, there's a compromise in the bore structure, and there's always a high frequency loss. You don't have that in a custom piece because you have, you know, you can put 2-3 bores, whatever you need to do to get the frequency response to extend out. I mean, it also has obviously to do with the driver, you know, design, those kinds of things. But basically, the real estate works in your favor in a custom mold. You have more places to put components in. You can make the tubes the proper lengths, things like that.
And as a manufacturer of both custom and universal fit stuff, universal, like Jerry says, it is a compromise. And real estate, that is something that we learned early on. You know, everybody's ear is as unique as their fingerprint, okay? And we can all use language to talk about what we hear, but we'll never hear what each other hears. So when we can take advantage of the canal itself to open up to the sound, to get to a greater depth, if you will, into the ear canal or closer to the TM than you could with any kind of a universal design, I think there are distinct advantages there that we as manufacturers can use to make this particular model sound best. You know, I mean, Jerry was talking about different soundboards, different length soundboards, there's all kinds of things that come into play that you can use to improve the quality of the sound of the component.
I think we're going to see, from now going forward for the next 5 years, we'll see another evolution where the universals will catch up to where the customs are now. Customs will continue to evolve as well. But the demand from consumers are going to, like you said, it's still so unknown on the custom side. The demand is going to create more research, is the point, which is going to drive the market space, which is going to drive the quality of the universals. So I think there will be more entry-level balanced armature on the universals, but I also think you'll see the same types of companies here really driving the market on the universal side. When you can get a more mass appeal, and you can put them in more people's ears, we're going to see another wave of research and development in sound.
Yeah, so Carl, you mentioned that you do universals and customs. Does anything you learn from customs have any relevance? I mean, does it pass down? Is it like Formula One where the technology can actually find its way to cars eventually?
Yeah, it definitely works that way, and that anything that we learn, we will use to our advantage, or as much of that particular theory, practice, or whatever that you can physically fit into a custom product. And you know, I also think, you know, earlier you talked about entry-level products and stuff like that. I still think, you know, I remember when Jerry and I first talked to Shure about a universal in-ear monitor and what they were going to do versus what we did for them. You know, we even brought up the fact that, you know, there's a whole consumer world out here, but that world needs to be educated because, quite truthfully, as you guys probably know, most people don't know what good sound is because they've been inundated since birth with this is what the car stereo sounds like, this is what the radio at home sounds like, and this is what your earbuds sound like by the mass market stuff out there. And it's groups like this and manufacturers and magazines like this that are actually raising the level so that people out there will start to expect more. I mean, you know, if you look at a car from 40 years ago and all the features and stuff that it had, it might actually get a flat every 6 months. Now you might get a flat every 6 years, okay? And so consumers are becoming educated. They're willing to pay more for the things that offer all that stuff. And I think the balanced armature driver, maybe even some hybrid things. I know that you had one, that a completely new balanced armature driver from the scratch. I mean, that's really exciting. Can I play? But you know, those things are really exciting, and I think they do show that, you know, even the sophistication of our phone goes up, and people are going to expect better and better and more and more. And it's going to be tougher and tougher for us to keep up. But you know, we're going to have to keep our thinking hands on long-range expectations. Exactly, exactly. I mean, it's like I can remember when I'm a little bit of a crappy musician. When I played my first gig, it was like a 200-watt PA and 4 10-inch speakers on each side of the stage. You know, now, I mean, you get laughed out of even a small room with that. So everybody expects more, everybody expects better, and I think that, you know, some of the companies up here are going to continue to deliver the high end of what other people will aspire to.
Oh, Chris, you had something you want to say?
I'm sorry. I just thought I might loop back to part of the question you asked earlier about the contribution of hearing aid companies, because for me, a great musical example would be the Phonak Ladeo series of universal bit in-ears coming indirectly out of Phonak hearing aid research. And two things I think those guys bring to the party, one of which is why high-end audio standards kind of a scary and radical idea is, hey folks, our research leads us to believe that sonic neutrality, if you buy that sonic neutrality is a good thing, isn't actually the same for all humans. And our research, you know, because of who we are, we can do this kind of research pretty easily, shows us that, you know, there are kind of clusters of ideas about what neutrality would be in an in-ear. So what we'll do is we'll build a platform which you basically never get to hear, and then a series of filters that match those curves that we believe to be the most common ones, and we'll let you plug in filter A, B, or C, see what jives with your sense of hearing, and voila, we've got neutrality for you. But if the man next to you, the woman next to you perceives things differently, they can pick a different filter and then they'll be happy. So I think that idea makes a lot of intuitive sense to me, and what this sort of comes out of is, I imagine you do this thing all the time, Tyll. What I find is when I'll give a review product in, I'll let other people try it, and reactions will be kind of all over the map. Ah, this thing's really bass heavy, I can't stand it. Wow, this thing needs way more highs and mids, you know, or wow, the high end is, you know, hotter than molten glass, I need to trim it. And you kind of think, everybody's using the same product, They're not stupid, and they've heard a lot of live music. So, I mean, it's not like they just fell from space and, whoa, it's an ear, what's that? I mean, they're literally trying to chase realistic reproduction, but it's not coming out the same for them. So, for what it's worth, guys like Phonak Claudeo may have a good idea, and I can't help but note that when AKG decided to build its mega uber universal fit in ear, not one of the affordable ones,
No.
when they built their K3003, they used very similar filter thinking. I think the other thing that sometimes hearing aid guys bring to universal fits is just a whole lot of data on ear shapes, so that they're able to make, it's kind of axiomatic that universal fits actually kind of aren't universal, that is. And you've probably encountered this yourself, where somebody says, wow, these are really comfortable, try them. I'd rather stick nails in my ear, what are you doing? I think sometimes the hearing aid guys make better guesses about a shape that will work for more people most of the time in universal fit. Now, after the customs solve the problem in a much more complete way.
Yeah. I would agree that experience with the ear, particularly multiple ears, is a really big thing. When we first started doing our universal products, Westone Laboratories originally started as a hearing healthcare company, and is still probably the largest manufacturer of custom fit products for the ear, for hearing healthcare and hearing protection on the planet. I've been there for 33 and a half years now. There were about 14 people there when I started. There's probably getting on towards 300 people at Westone now. We do military, we do music, we do hearing protection, we do hearing healthcare, as well as clinical supplies, audiology supplies, and test equipment. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I would agree that the experience with the ear, particularly with universal stuff, is utmost critical. I mean, every ear, you can go with a generality. Every ear from the aperture or the entrance of the ear canal to the eardrum or tympanic membrane is approximately 25 millimeters in length. Every ear is approximately 2 cc in volume from the occluded end of an earpiece to the TM. I can tell you from reality, that's not necessarily the case. And companies that design to those general, broad guidelines, I know, sitting in the office here is my brother, Chris Carter. He's also a long-term guy here and artist and stuff. And yeah, go ahead.
Everyone that has a universal fit that is a contra fit should thank Chris, because he designed that for Sure Brothers. So Chris is the man over there for that.
Yeah, and I was going to say his design is probably the most copied design on the planet. As a matter of fact, I was on Amazon the other day looking at earpieces, and there's a new company out that's talking about their revolutionary teardrop fit. But when we decided to design the universal, we had years of experience working with earpieces, custom earpieces, and so we could visualize a lot of what we'd seen in the past. And as a benefit, we had access to thousands of human ear impressions. And we, spent like 2 days with a notebook and rulers and dividers and all kinds of stuff, and we measured and came up with what we thought was the optimum shape or angles for a universal fit earpiece. And if you haven't tried, the Shure Brothers products are kind of based on that design. Westone products, there are a few others now that are kind of based on it. But if you're looking for universal, even yours is a nozzle and body design. It has been an influential thing, and that relationship with the ear, as both these gentlemen said, is really important.
I have to chime in. There's something that we're not talking about, and that's the human side of it. So we can all talk about the ear, we can talk about the ideals, but if the pieces are ugly, if they're big, or if they're funny, nobody's going to buy them. And they can sound fantastic. One of our first universal designs, which was one of my favorite sonic signatures, looked like a Frankenstein horse, and it didn't catch on. And it's... What? So we can have all the data points. We can say this is what an earpiece should look like. But if it doesn't sit flush, if women don't gravitate to it, it's not going anywhere. If it's not truly universal, and I mean universal in all the scopes, like people buy something, it sounds good, it looks good, it feels good, it's not going to be a successful product. And so what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a merge of all of these things, and we're seeing it move into where it is consumer friendly, consumer accepted. Our new Universal 900s, in my opinion, are one of the nicest I've ever seen, and they fit right in the ear like earpieces should. And that's what's happening now. So we're really seeing, and we will continue to see, that direction.
Noel Lee begs to differ.
Noel does beg to differ.
Because he's got earphones that are shaped like trumpets and triangles and all sorts of stuff. And he, from what I can tell, sells a whole hell of a lot of them.
He does. I actually like Mount Davis trumpet though. I think that's a good piece.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I mean, it's gauche. I mean, right? The look is,
yeah.
But looks like a trumpet. But I think it sounds good for a universal. But all right, so before we, because I want to end with the custom guys again, because I have a point I want to make. I got a pair of mine out here, black pair, because you guys can see them easily. They're by JH Audio, not for any specific reason other than you can see them easily. They're black. But before we move on, I wanted to leave the manufacturers out of this one and talk to Tyll and Chris and say, so we were talking about universal fit recommendations. I want to start with mine first. We were talking about that. I'm not saying it just because he's here. The Sony XBA3 I really like. I can recommend that's $300 or thereabouts. The Ultimate Ears UE900, have you tried those yet?
I have.
I like those a lot. The Westone 4R, not just because these guys are sitting here, they happen to be some of the best in-ear manufacturers here. The Shure SE535 are mine, and the Phonak, actually the PFE232, I think is really good. I like that one. You don't like that one?
No.
Okay, what about your recommendation?
Well, first of all, I really hate anything that's piercingly bright in any way whatsoever.
Which one of those is bright to you?
Virtually all of them. Really? Yeah. I don't like the Sonys. I don't. The Shures are smooth enough. For universal fit, I like the PFEs that Chris mentioned, the cheap ones.
The cheap ones?
Yeah,
I haven't heard those.
They're not very. They don't have very much bass in them. They're a little bass shy, but they're very, very clean sounding. They remind me a lot of the Etymotic ER4s. If you're trying to get a lot of isolation, the Etymotic ER4P offers more isolation than anything else. But it's not anything but ergonomic in a lot of ways. You just really have to shove it very deep in your ear.
I like it, it's just not my, that's not what my favorite sounding. But no, the other one, so we disagree on choices. What about, go ahead, keep going.
No, so I tend to like smooth sounding stuff, and fundamentally that's really, really hard to come by in times. They tend to be a little piercing sometimes.
So the SE535 is one of your top.
Yeah, so the SE535 is where I go with that. And the real voice, the Spider real voice, they're dynamics. They're not.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Yeah, they're nice and smooth.
That's good. Yeah, that's very affordable. What about you, Chris?
Okay, I get mine.
Oh, wait. Oh, Jerry's gonna say something.
Shameless plug for the magazine. You'll see free copies of these around, and the buyer's guide, I'm pleased to say, has both an earphone and a headphone section. And so in the more, well, I'll start at about the $150 level. We recommended the Etymotic HF2, which is kind of a poor man's EL4. Phonak Audio PFE 122, which is the less expensive of the Sony XBA3, the classic Etymotic ER4P, the Klipsch Image X10i.
Yeah,
that's good.
It is.
It's just really comfortable. That's the big selling point.
Yeah.
My favorite of Monster cables, which is the Monster Cable Turbo Pro Copper Westone 4, and the Audio PFE 232, which is the more expensive one. And if you're really feeling well-heeled that day,
I actually heard that one. Have you talked?
It's too bright.
It's too bright.
Use the filters, Luke.
Yeah. All right, so now we're probably going to run out of time here, so I want to get back to customs because that, even though they go deeper, I find them to be more comfortable. Do you, Tom? Absolutely. What about you, Chris? I find them to be more comfortable. And in addition to the fact that I think they sound better, they're also a lot easier to put in, so you don't have to roll. So this is that left earpiece, it's in. And then when you want to take them out, it's out. And it isolates very well, and they sound fantastic. I was just talking to this gentleman here, he said, you just ordered the JH16? So yeah, so these are JH16s here. I just chose them because it's black. They sound great too, but they're easy for you to see. But they go in easy, they seal real well, and they're very comfortable because they don't place a lot of outward pressure, at least if you get a proper fit on your ear canal. So from a comfort standpoint, they're also a huge advantage. Anybody want to add anything about comfort and sound advantages with the customs?
Well, I was just going to add on the comfort. You know, some people go, well, maybe it's hard plastic and that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's just like a suit or custom shoes, okay? A little bit of attention from the tailor, and that's the custom shop manufacturer. And your earpiece can be amazingly comfortable for the longest periods of time. Now, some of that is you. Some of that is you following the instructions that the manufacturer gives you for getting the impression. Because, you know, we all have our secret sauce, right, Mike? I mean, he's going to treat the impression slightly different than I will, slightly different from the way Jerry will. And that is to optimize what we get out of the earpiece. So, spend a little time with the tailor, the person that's making the impression, talk to them about it, make sure that they're not just an impression taker for no reason at all other than they happen to be in the mall and you were close to the mall. Okay, you know, this is a serious thing. But if you take the right steps, all manufacturers will take the right steps, and you'll have the most amazing sounding, comfortable product that you can get.
And if you're going to invest in $1,000 in-ear monitors, it doesn't hurt you to call the manufacturer because you just tell them where you live. And if you're looking for an audiologist, so just to be clear, when, I don't mean to patronize anybody, I don't know who knows what we're talking about here. You have to shoot silicone impressions of your ears. So they inject silicone into your ears, fill up the whole ear canal, that's how they get the impression of your ear. And call the manufacturers and ask for a recommendation. They might have one in your area. I mean, if you live in a really rural area, you know, you might have to kind of find them on your own. But in most major cities, these guys have recommendations, specific audiologists that they might recommend. And would you say it's a good idea, guys?
You know, I would say one of the best places to get your impressions done is at these shows, because
yeah, absolutely.
They know what they're doing. You know they know what they're doing when you get them done right at the show. So if you've got an interest in a pair of in-ear headphones, it's a great place to.
If I may add, I don't know if you are, Mike, but I believe we are doing impressions in our booths.
Yeah.
And so even if you just want to come by and talk to somebody about the tools and the materials, not necessarily get impressions, at least you can get an idea of
or to watch somebody else get them.
How much is a typical set of impressions? Just so about $50 a pair, right?
Between $50 and $75.
Yeah. But Jerry, you know, so the impressions thing is interesting. At your booth, you have a technology that's being shown called.
Yeah, the Lantos technology. It's an in-ear scanner. So first quarter of next year, hopefully this will be launched through their FAA approval. And so we're hoping that within the near future that the impressions will go by the wayside, because on the backside we're already using SLA machines to print shells and 3-shape programs to detail the shells in a UV world, you know, UV material. So we're going to be launching with hopefully the Lantos will be using that stuff first quarter of next year. Try to move over to a digital world and get rid of some of the impression taking questions, you know, problems.
And that's a game changer for all the manufacturers. I'll speak for all of us. It's an absolute game changer.
Yeah, it's a good piece of wood.
it's really amazing because you know the image is not distorted in any way by anything that's not natural in your ear. For instance, you know the impression can be distorted by how you hold your jaw. I'm sure we all have specifics of how we want that. Same thing will apply to a digital image. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you know, we're all using for different reasons and different purposes completely digital manufacturing. last step is what they were showing here at the show, which I think if you get a chance, you should look at, and that is to get the impression scanned and to be delivered to the manufacturer within the same hour, let's say, or sooner.
I'm not really sure what their business model is, but I know it's going to be readily available, and it will be cheaper than taking impressions. It's like a $10 reusable little balloon that they put on there that has a couple different dyes in it. So,
well, it doesn't use lasers inside their
it uses, you know, it's an MIT spinoff that designed this Lantos, and you know, they're really, this inner scanner has been talked about for the past, what, 15 years? We'll see it in 18 months. We'll see it in 18 months. Well, now there are a few companies that actually are bringing it to market, but the way I think it works, and I'm not an expert on it, is that there's a balloon that actually inflates, and it has a couple different colors of dye in it. And then as you pull the scope out, it stitches together the image as it comes out of the ear. So there's so many points of reference in there. And like I said, I could be, I'm just giving a broad stroke. I don't know the details of it. But if you want to speak to the lady at our booth, she knows in depth of how this works, and she can give you all the details of it.
Yeah, from my understanding, that's a very accurate description of what's going on. There are several different models of ear scanning technology that will become available. I mean, for us as manufacturers, it would probably be ideal if you go to a little corner booth in the mall and say, I want a UE7000 JH2 and a Carl 78, whatever it is. And that's a transaction that takes place instantaneous. And you can bet that all of us are looking at ways to make this work as a convenience thing to do, because all of us believe in custom. Otherwise, we would be doing the custom thing. Now, Universal is a different business model, but you can kind of, if you match the mall store idea and a Universal, or the Dr. Scholl's custom shoe insert booth, you kind of get an idea of probably where some people think that this is headed, and distribution of better fitting, better sounding stuff, and a lot of education, which I think HeadFi is helping us out with some of that.
Because at the end of the day, custom is a hard product to acquire. You have to really want it.
Yeah.
There's some hurdles and some hoops you have to jump through. I can't think of many other products that exist that are so difficult to achieve. This step really shortens the gap, and it brings a custom much closer to the ease of universal.
I think customs are going to become more common, actually. We talked about this actually in a panel last year. I think you're going to start seeing kids wearing them more, dangling off the neck. There is already a cool factor programmed in with the musicians wearing them. So I think their favorite artists all wear custom ear monitors. When the artists first started wearing them, they were doing them in like flesh colors so that you didn't think they were wearing hearing aids. But now they want you to see them, And so I think customs are going to actually become more widespread. With the young kids are always looking for something, the next thing, the next cool thing. They also tend to like things that are expensive and clearly expensive. So no, they do. Well, they do, right? And if you know that you've got this, a custom in your monitor dangling from your neck, and it's $800 or $1,000. I think the kids are going to kind of dig that aspect of it. But it also happens to sound fantastic if you get a good pair. So
I mean, look at the success that they've had with Beats, because it's just a cool thing to have more than anything.
Right.
I mean, what's cooler than the Beats is actually having something that's designed, custom, whatever color, whatever, you want bling on it, you don't want bling on it. And that's even cooler than a set of Beats, because it's actually custom to you, and it's kind of a status symbol because, no one else has that exact, it's going to be a totally personalized custom earpiece. I think that's a lot better than having the same thing everybody else has with a white headphone and a red cable.
Right. Yeah, so I think they're going to be more popular. What do you think, Tyler? Do you think they'll get popular?
The thing that keeps on coming back to my head is that at the high end of headphones, the custom in-ears are so incredibly good sound that, I really can't think of a headphone, a normal size headphone. Okay, the Stax 009 is pretty good, the HD800, when you put them on in it, is pretty good, but the JH13s, and I haven't heard of custom Westone, I'm sorry, but some of these customs
at the top end are just spectacular. And Jerry has just flushed his brain and figured out a whole new theory. And if you get a chance to listen to the JH13s in his booth over there, they're extremely coherent sounding, and not like anything I've heard on headphones. I think.
Yeah, actually, you should try ES5 too. Yeah, but
I know.
JH13s are an easy recommendation.
Well, and I've got some of the ACSs, and I've got some of the UERM, and they're all very, very good.
Right.
They're all, and so one of the so the thing that gets to me is that it's expensive and they're small, and is it really worthwhile? And then you get a pair, and it's like, man, I haven't heard anything like this before.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I agree with that.
How many of you have never heard custom fit? So fair enough. One thing I toss out, and it's one of those things where it's so much of truism in audio that you forget how true it really is. It's a personal testimony, but I'll also share something from an office meeting that was on custom fits. To be absent from the noise is to be present with music. Because I figure everyone in this room wouldn't be here if they weren't after some kind of powerful intimate connection with music. And speaking from personal experience, from the minute I got my first set of custom fitting air monitors, thank you, sir. The illusion was that the cone of silence really had to come down. And the thing that dawned on me was, oh, that's what the drivers sound like when you don't have air conditioning, TV noises, car traffic, a million and one little things you forget are around you every day, every minute of every day. When you take those away, and holy moly, there's music in here. And it's just me and music. I had a staff member who got her first ever set of in-ears, and I came out to check in on her a few minutes after she had a chance to read the instructions and figure out how to put it in. And I walked up to her and I saw her eyes were welling up with tears. I said, "You doing okay?" She just said, "I don't know if I can handle this. It's the first time I've ever had the sense of being just me and the music, nothing else."
We sound kind of like cult, don't we? but no, it really is that good. I mean, the customs really are that good. So I guess we'll go to Q&A now for everybody, unless anybody has anything they want to close with. All right, we'll go to Q&A. Danny.
Just more of a comment, maybe a little bit of a question, is for those that do not yet have customs and are going to get them, getting the precise fit is key. If you don't have a precise fit, you're not going to want to use them. So send them back if you get a hot spot in your ear or something like that. And I just want to ask you guys about how you work with the customer in that process.
Yeah, we probably all have pretty much the same. We would like to have you talk to us. Remember earlier I said you need to talk to the tailor? You know, I mean, if you want your slacks to hang a certain way, you know, whatever it is, you need to talk to us because we will do everything to make sure that your experience is the best. The communication is anything from as simple as, tell me it feels big, or, you know, and I will try and question them, not me personally, but somebody much better at it than me, will question you about, okay, let's get a little bit more into specifics, and we'll work through that. I mean, even down to, if there's a sore spot in your ear, put some hypoallergenic lipstick on it, put the earpiece in and send it to the lab. We're going to do the best thing we can because, you know, we believe intensely in this personal audio experience. Does that help? Absolutely.
Two of the tailors before us, and if the bouncer could be alerted with any kind of obligation, please contrast the air with JH16 and the Ultimate Ears personal reference model monitors that have acquired this accolade of being able to build. Do we have
Yeah.
Well, I think you really need to come by both booths since you're here and take a listen. The two different approaches to audio. UE has their approach and I have my approach. The thing I can say about the 16 and the 13 is they're the only earpieces on the planet now that are actually phase correct. It took me 15 years to figure out how to do it, and I finally did. So you'll hear, in my earpiece, you'll probably have a little bit more bottom end than a reference because it's more of a flat bottom end, and I'll let Mike speak to that. But what I've been working on is having a very musical sounding earpiece, something that has a pleasing audio signature with a very wide frequency response. And believe it or not, between the 10 and 2 o'clock area, that is really critical to have perfect phase. That's where you can really hear the articulation in the mix, all the pans, those kinds of things. So if you come and listen, kind of live with them for a little bit and kind of listen to the separation, the articulation. And then, everybody has it's kind of like, salt and pepper. Bass is kind of like spice, right? Some people like no bass, some people like more bass than you can stand. So I think they're both going to be good sounding, excellent sounding earpieces. I think a lot of it will be your personal taste of what you like in your bottom end and, the audio signature. Mike?
I was going to sort of answer your question with a question. Who's your favorite musician?